I thought we should talk.
Okay. I don't know how to start.
Ah, yes, the argument scene from Noah Baumbach's 2019 film Marriage Story. Most known for its final lines with,
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead.
but we'll get into that later. There's actually a 10-minute long scene, at least 6 of them considered to be part of this argument, that builds the tension as we see these two characters go from talking to fighting to full on berating each other. And it gives the audience this uncomfortable feeling like we're in the room watching our parents argue. So, understandably, a lot of this scene's praise is for its incredible dialogue and amazing performances from Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. But today, we're not here to talk about why those are so great. We're instead going to dive deeper into the lesser known elements of setting, blocking, and mobile framing to see how director Noah Baumbach uses them to create a feeling of anxiety for the audience, as well as reveal the characters' hidden emotional desires in the argument scene. First things first, let's examine the setting. The scene takes place in Charlie's new apartment, which he's just moved into, obviously, because the two characters are going through a divorce. There's nothing on any of the walls, and the whole room just has this beige color palette. This visually gives the audience nothing to distract themselves from the characters. When the argument starts to make the viewer anxious, they might instinctively want to divert their attention to a picture on the wall or the colors in the frame or anything else, but by providing the audience with none of that, they have no choice but to give their undivided attention to the words that these characters are speaking to one another. Another key aspect of the setting is the two divided sections of the apartment, being the living room area and the kitchen. These two rooms are not completely separate from one another, but mostly cut off. This way, the characters have a space where they can still hear and talk to each other, but cannot see each other. And Baumbach uses this when the characters are talking, but not understanding each other's perspectives. And finally, when they do see each other's perspectives, but disagree on them, they're put on either side of this strong dividing wall in the middle of the set. We see visually when they are crossing over to try and see eye to eye, and when they'd rather not
just
acknowledge
based on your schedule
all
this one
thanks
night we
to
haven't
the
had
set.
tickets
Not
to a
only this
thing.
one night, but
It
fine.
may look very minimalistic on the surface, but it is well crafted to serve its purpose in the story as the location for one of the most pivotal scenes in the film. The next thematic element, which I started to touch on in terms of how they move around the space, is blocking. Baumbach didn't just write this script for the characters to sit still and talk. They almost continuously walk around the space in a carefully choreographed way, at times almost akin to a physical fight scene. After all, this does become an emotional one. Here, they sit down, it starts out calm, they see each other on the same level. But when Nicole starts to get frustrated, she stands up, and as her aggression towards Charlie builds, she is standing
Unless they're
over
forced
him.
on you.
Okay.
When the aggression
Okay,
becomes
Mary
too
Lee,
much
you
for
wish you
Charlie,
had a
however,
different life,
he
but this is what
flees
happened.
and moves back into the kitchen.
So what do we
Not
do?
really
know.
because he needs to wash one dish at this moment, but instead because he needs something to distract himself from facing this argument. However, Nicole once again moves into the kitchen, into his space, to continue pushing the conversation to the points she wants to hit at. This blocking complements the character's thought process. Charlie is always the one backing away. He does not want to engage in the argument or try to understand Nicole's thoughts. On the other hand, Nicole has complaints she wants to work through, even if that means pushing at Charlie to understand her feelings. This intentional movement of the actors shows the audience who has the power at different points in the scene and who is more or less aggressive. Later, Charlie once again retreats into Henry's room, where Nicole follows him, and only after poking the bear long enough, she gets Charlie to charge out of his room, and from that point in the scene, his aggression overpowers hers. At that moment, we understand why Charlie kept running from the argument the whole time, because he didn't want to go too far. But by the end of the scene, he finds himself now backed into a corner. He has nowhere to hide from his emotions. He punches a wall and lashes out in anger. We simply wouldn't relate as much to Charlie's feelings and understand the reasons behind him lashing out and then subsequently regretting it if they had this whole conversation in one spot. The blocking is crucial to revealing the character's motivations, but I'm getting ahead of myself, because the actors are not the only ones moving. The camera also moves throughout the scene several times to highlight their shifts in conversation topics. When we start in the living room, they begin their conversation about why Nicole wanted to move to LA, a key factor in their divorce, but like I said, Charlie doesn't understand her perspective. And as he goes to the kitchen, the camera pivots 180 degrees. Their conversation is on to a new topic, now about the lawyers in their divorce. It continues to do this. Look, we move on to the topic about their parenting experiences with Henry, and the camera rotates 90 degrees more, now framing Charlie inside Henry's bedroom. Like it or not, Charlie finds himself immersed into the conversation about Henry. The turns of the camera in this scene may not be the most noticeable movements, but work wonders to imply the audience the changes as the argument progresses through these different stages. When Nicole finally gets Charlie to come out of the bedroom and pulls him back into the argument, the camera visually pulls back on screen. Once again, the camera follows the emotional subtext. It doesn't stop at movement, however. We have to consider the character's size in the frame. When they're speaking these general criticisms of one another, they're seen in medium shots. But as their complaints become very specifically targeted insults, they take up more space, now in close-ups. By moving closer and closer, the audience feels immersed into the tension. They are literally caught right in between these two arguing. It's uncomfortable. When Charlie lashes out at Nicole, he is commanding the screen, yelling right at the audience. But after he regrets it and apologizes, the camera pulls back. We cut to the wide angle when Charlie realizes the full scope of what he just did. When this argument started, we were in the same wide angle. They were attempting to view everything as a whole. But as it moved around, twisting and turning, getting far too closely targeted, they lose sight of each other's perspectives. By the time we see them both in frame again, it's now gone further than either of them wanted this to go. So, yes, Johansson and Driver's performances are masterclasses in acting, just as the dialogue is in screenwriting, but that is not all that makes up this scene. Baumbach's careful consideration of the setting, being a painfully bland-looking, closed-in apartment that is split into different sections, lays the groundwork for this argument to take place, and immerses the audience from all around. The blocking of the characters, going from equivalent levels to overpowering each other, to pushing the conversation forward versus backing away from it, reveals their underlying emotional motivations. All of this is complemented by excellent movement of the camera to show the shifts in topic of conversation, push and pull the characters into the tension, and frame them closer when the insults sting, but farther away when everything is in perspective. All these thematic elements work to add additional levels to the viewer's experience while watching this scene, and for me, it adds more to appreciate as a filmmaker. But with that being said, my name is Dave Palazzolo, and thank you for watching.